Hi guys, I wanted to look at the area of bad debts and bad debt provisions. It's a common question in the double entry bookkeeping for CAP 1, but also it arises a number of adjustments when preparing the income statement and the statement of financial position. So I have a question here, and it's on the 1st of January, at the start of the year, Paul O'Shea's allowance for receivables to the 20,000. And what that means is that at the start of the year, he had expected not to receive 20,000 from his trade receivables. So he has a provision or a current liability in his statement of financial position. The year-end receivables, as at the end of the year, amounted to 940. Fine. So that was his current assets, his trade receivables. It was then decided to write off a bad debt of 100K. So that's going to be an expense. Excuse me, and you're going to debit your expense and you're going to credit your trade receivables. Because remember, in the income statement, you only have two things. You have your expenses and income. And in the statement of financial position, really, you only have assets and liabilities. So I always forget, actually, always forget which side goes on what. And I remember, call that revenue. I remember that in Ireland, you drive on the left. So, excuse me, it's going to be on the debit side because DOR. What would happen if you drove on the right-hand side? In Ireland, you'd crash, wouldn't you? Of course. So I always remember my debits and credits. And I know I'm a qualified accountant, but sometimes I forget. There's various mnemonics which I'm not going to go into. Earl is this one, EARL. All expenses and assets are on the left debit side. All revenue and income and liabilities are on the credit. Okay, so let me have a little look at this question. So my trade receivables, the balance is 940 at the end of the year. And what I'm going to do is going to write off 100K. My journal, if you're interested, will be to debit my bad debt expense and credit my trade receivables, reduce down the value of that asset, that trade receivable asset. Okay, so what I'm left with is 840,000. And to adjust the allowance for receivables to 10% of the remaining. Okay, so I need to have an allowance for receivables at the end of the year. These are the people who I think I'm not, that won't pay me. And that's going to be 10%. So it's going to be 84,000. 840, multiply that by 10%. And how much is my expense? Well, it's a lot of people will think it's 84,000, but it's not. I need to look at the movement in the expense. So, for example, I bought lunch today, and when I was walking to the shop, I had my opening balance was €10 in cash in my pocket, and my closing balance was €6. How much money did Aidan spend on lunch today? Assuming he didn't find any money or lose any money, the expense will be €4. Well done. So it's the same concept here. The opening allowance was 20,000. My closing allowance needs to be 84,000. So the movement in between that is the expense. So the expense is actually going to be 64,000. And you're going to debit your bad debt provision expense. Debt provision, and you're going to credit your liability, in your statement of financial position, your provision for bad or doubtful debts. So what's my answer is, well, my trade receivables at the end of the year were 940. I took off 100K and I am so down to 840. I now need to reduce it by the provision. My provision is going to be 84,000. So my new trade receivables in my statement of financial position as at the 31st of December 2021 is going to be 756. My expense in the income statement is going to be 100,000 for the bad debt that I wrote off, plus the 64,000 expense. So my expense in the income statement, just so we're clear, it's the write-off and the increase in provision. It is possible to have a reduction in the provision, which would work the opposite way. So BROVISIN. So the write-off was 100. The expense is 64. The movement in provision is 64. So the total expense in the accounts is 164. I hope that was of some use, guys. It's Aidan Moore in here from Tax Accounting Grinds. Anyone needs any help in relation to any of the contents, my link or my contact details are on my profile page. Happy to help, but bye for now. Thank you very much.